Hey, everybody, it's 8 o'clock, and everybody in the world decided to call me right now. What up, everybody? Who all we got here? All right, I'm done with that. Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. Let's see who we got here. We got Crystal and Bill in the house. We got Parker Miley's here. What's up, Parker? We got Mike and Miriam, Teresa Bitters here, Crystal Dove, Eric. How you doing, Eric? DW is here tonight. Hey, buddy. Joyce Koenig. Hi, Joyce. Gene Smith is here. Hi, Nikki. Nikki, is your name Nicole Coleman? If not, you might want to address the spelling of your name in the chat room. Let's see, Randy Ryan's here. Teresa Bitters. Hi, Angie Myers. Long time no see. All right, Cheryl's here. Hey, Suze. Daryl Louth is here. Joe Sutton says hello, hello. Let's see, Margie and Doug Whitling. Hi, guys. Cheryl and Jack, glad to have you guys. Otter's here. Dave Jessen. Hi, Dave and Amy. Amy Hogshead, who I talked to on the phone like 90 seconds ago. Hi, Amy. Janine here. And Joe Sutton is here along with a bunch of sinners. And Jess says, hey, I just left the church. Well, you must have just missed me. I'm here now. So, all right, cool. We're going to give everybody a chance to log in. Hey, while we do that, waiting for the last few folks to sign up. April Johns is in the house. Everybody can calm down. I know we were really concerned about April being here, and we are excited to have her joining us and gracing us with her presence. Did you all know that due to her, April Johns' immense popularity, that the entire country has been shut down for the entire month of April in celebration of our very own April Johns? Did you guys know that? I thought a parade would have been good enough, but April is apparently too important for that. So the whole world has been shut down in honor of April Johns. So thank you, April. We hope that you feel super special during this time. So, all right. Kim Kill is here. Hi, Trina, and hi, Jess. So, and April Johns, of course, we're so glad to hear you. Joe Sutton says he smells sarcasm. No, I'm entirely serious. COVID-19 is a code for happy birthday, April John. So, all right. You're welcome, April. We're so glad you're here. All right. Okay. Now that I have embarrassed the people I set out to, I was going out on a limb on that one, April. I figured somebody named April should have been born in April. I was playing the odds on that one. So, all right, we're still glad you're here. Okay, cool. Tonight I want to give you a couple of notes about where we're going. I hope all of you have the worksheet. If you don't have the worksheet, I will post the link here in just a moment. So you can get it. I've heard from a lot of you. You guys are talking about filling these worksheets out and kind of taking it seriously, which I'm real proud of you for doing that. It's just something to help you reflect on dangerous prayers. And I think that it's a good opportunity to, think through exactly how these dangerous prayers may work in your life and be able to enjoy that. Here we go. And remember, and I know the thing that you all have been struggling with, and let me explain one more time. The reason there are two columns, there's a feed column and a starve column. And the reason that each of the 7 pieces is there like that is because you can't, if you want to have your life be balanced, you can't take from one area of your life to compensate for another area. So if you want to do some kind of, spiritual practice, you have to put that in the spiritual portion of your life. Because if you rob from your relationship life to feed your spiritual life, all you're doing is destroying your relationship life. God doesn't want that. And so if you're going to make allowances, what you're going to have to do in order to make room for these dangerous prayers is you're going to have to give and take, I guess you could say, from the same area of your life. So let me put this out here again. If you want the worksheet, putting it in the chat right now. So you can jump over there and get it. And it is very challenging, Randy. It's meant to be, because I really want you to be able to, have a balanced life. Because I lived I'm still at 45 years. I still haven't figured it out about how to live in balance. And, so I want you to be able to not make the same mistakes I've made. And try to live life out of balance, because all that does is destroy your life and hurt the people around you. And I think that's what dangerous prayers are going to do. I really think that that's what God desires. Is nope, same hair as last night, Daryl. I really think that there's a correlation here, that when you're praying dangerous prayers, God's ultimate goal, the thing that God wants to accomplish, the thing that God wants you to experience, is He wants you to experience balance, because balance is health. If you got too much going one direction in one area of your life, given my awesome chart here, if you're too much on one side and nothing on the other, that's not balance. So if you're going to try to feed your personal life at the expense of your physical life, it doesn't work that way. Because all too often, that's what we do. We try to compensate and say, okay, I've taken too much time in this area, so I'm going to take some time from here to give to that. And suddenly now there's some really, really important stuff in our life that gets no time. And if the coronavirus shut down, spoiler alert, it's not really April Johns we shut down for, it's coronavirus. I was just joking. If the coronavirus has taught us anything, it's that we need time. And a lot of us, and I'm pointing at this guy right here, we're not taking the time that we need to take to be able to live the life that God wants us to live. And we now have been given a God-given opportunity here to sit back and evaluate. And I hope and I pray that when the time comes that life starts resembling normal, that's gonna be a while from now. My hope is that you don't go back. Is that you don't go back the same way we went in. And that's okay, April. I don't want anybody to be mad at you either. You can all be mad at me. I made that up. So yeah, but that's the idea. Okay, April, you can expect communication from Joe Sutton getting this all straightened out. So you guys have fun with that. I hope that you don't go out of this COVID-19. I hope you don't go out of it the same way you came in it. I know I won't. This book, this Dangerous Prayers book, I'm telling you, folks, I wish Jess and I could help you understand how crazy it was that this book came down when it did. It was an accident, really, that we came to this. Jess suggested it to me. I had planned to start a study that actually would have started last night. And it was going to be a couple of weeks study. We were going to meet on Monday nights to do this. I had no idea this is what was coming. And it's just like God said, you guys are going to need something. And we had Dangerous Prayers. I've really been impacted by this book. And I think that I've been impacted by my conversations with you guys. You guys are so awesome to come out every night. I hope you understand. I get paid to say stuff like that. But I legitimately mean it. I'm so just, there's 34 people logged in here right now. It's just very cool that you guys are making the effort to be here. So, and Jess, I'm glad that you brought this book to me, and I'm glad that we decided to run with it, because this has been great. So, yeah, Joe, it's a little closer to the book study. Yeah, I would always recommend that, and everybody be nice to April. So, all right, Amy, we miss you too, and appreciate you all who are being a part of this. So we're going to come back and talk about this thing. Again, link is in the live chat over there. If you want to download it, take a look at it. This goes back to the chapter from 2 nights ago, which would have been Sunday night, which would have been, where are we at tonight? We are on 3 point, so it'll be 3.5. He talked about how in section 3.5, he talked about how there are a lot of things in our life that we need to feed and a lot of things in life that we need to starve. And unfortunately, we confuse them a lot. We feed things, we feed urges, we feed sinful activity, we feed distraction when we should really be starving it. And then we take some things that, like, discipleship and service and mission, and we should be feeding those things, and we end up starving that. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of you have really enjoyed this study, and I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am. Where's that here? Before we wrap up tonight, we're going to talk about the next study, and right here it is. So stay tuned till the end. We're going to talk about what we're going to do, because tomorrow night is our last night. Now, for those of you who have been asking me about how exactly this works, as far as how we get to this filling out this chart that I've been torturing all of you with, go read the conclusion. I read it. There is some excellent content in the conclusion. Unfortunately, I don't think it would make for a very good discussion here. So we're not going to have a night on the conclusion. But for those of you who are struggling on how to figure this out, go read the conclusion to this book. It's a quick read for those of you who have the book, and it gives some good examples, like real world kind of examples of how we feed things and starve things. He doesn't use that language, but I mean, you get the gist. That's what he's talking about. And so those of you who have the book, if you want to go listen or read the conclusion, I think you'll find that very helpful. But we're not going to have a night on it, because there's just the content that's there. I don't think would make for a very good discussion. It's something that you can digest on your own if you're interested. But we're going to do 3.7 tonight. We're going to do 3.8 tomorrow night. And then we're moving on to Joseph on Thursday. And I'll say a little more about that when we get there. Okay. Hey, Barb Fitzgerald. How you and Bud doing? Glad to see you guys tonight. So, okay. Okay. All right. I already said that. All right. So one of the things he talks about in praying dangerous prayers, and I kind of got on you guys about this a little bit, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. When you're filling out your little charts here, I want you to be specific, and I want it to be measurable, and I want it to be personal, because the personal thing is, if it doesn't, and that's why I've been very squeamish about giving you guys specifics, examples, because I don't want you just to write what I say. And because this needs to be personal. This is your journey with God. It's not my journey. It's not anybody else's journey. It's yours. And I would like for you to own it and be a part of it, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to benefit from it. Now, people around you are going to benefit too, your family, your coworkers, your friends, so on and so forth. But you're the one that's going to be the beneficiary. Therefore, the process should be yours. And that's why I really appreciate the fact that Craig, he says, okay, from my life, here's an example. From my life, here's something that we can do, and whatever. But he doesn't really, he doesn't give a lot of specifics. And I know that's frustrated some of you, but he wants you to own it. He wants it to be yours. That's exactly what I want. I don't, if I would have had specific things I wanted on this chart, I wouldn't have had any blank lines. I would have wrote all your stuff out for you and said, here, guys, do this. I was not interested in that. It's your journey. I want you to own it. I want you to be responsible for it. And I want you to be accountable for it in whatever way is relevant to you. But, too many times, and I get real annoyed by this, and any of you who pay attention probably picked up on this. But I get really annoyed when people try to take their experience of Jesus and their experience of their walk in their faith and their experience of what their faith looks like and how they practice it and how all these things happen, and use that as the litmus test for everyone else. So, if you're not doing it like me, gosh, you're going to hell or something. And that just drives me straight up the wall. And the reason is because I can show you biblical examples of people who were very, very faithful, who disagreed very, very sharply about certain issues. Peter and Paul being two of them. There's a reason why we don't have any stories of Peter and Paul doing anything together, ever. The only evidence we have that they met is in the book of Galatians. Paul references that he met Peter, and when he met Peter, did anybody know what it said he did? He said, "When I met Peter, I opposed him to his face because he was clearly wrong." So I could wager that Peter and Paul, while loving Jesus and being great followers, probably weren't buddies. We have no indication that they ever did anything together. They never had a mission together. Paul has some pretty disparaging things to say about Peter, to be honest with you. Peter only mentions Paul just very briefly. So there are examples. And look, who's going to deny that Peter and Paul are both very, very faithful people? I mean, they're pillars of our faith. Yeah, we credit Jesus for the Christian movement, but it was Peter and Paul that really got it going as far as spreading it throughout the world. And yet, there's two guys that had some disagreements with each other. We'll say that. And so for anybody to come along and say, I am the measure by which Christians should be, measured, and I'm the one that gets to say who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong. Well, that don't go real far with me. I wouldn't even hold myself to that standard. I don't go around and saying, none of you guys are ministers. This ain't gonna work out for you. I don't even think that. Let alone if I did, I wouldn't say that. So, and I get real annoyed with people who think, that their brand, their interpretation is the only one. Yes, there are some major things that we have to agree on to be a Christian. Yes, you have to believe in the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, resurrection of Christ, the ministry of the church, the ongoing work of the Holy Spirit. There's a lot of those things we have to agree on, but honestly, in all the things there are to disagree about, those things are pretty few and far between. And for us to say that we have the definitive definition of what it means is arrogance to the highest degree. And the good Lord had some things to say about that. So, okay. For those of you who have the book and are following along, and if you're not or don't have it, that's fine. And he gives an example of a prayer, and I don't want to say too much about this prayer. I'm going to go through some of the highlights, but this prayer kind of goes on for a while, and I love prayers, and if any of you have the book, if this prayer is particularly meaningful to you, if you'd like to read it out loud and make it your own, I think that would be awesome. But the very first line of the prayer, I want to go over some of the details, because while the specific words aren't that important, the concepts is going over here, I think, are. And I want to review these with you. The very first line, he says, "Heavenly Father, because you gave Jesus for me," which, well, here we are, the Tuesday after Easter. What an appropriate day to read that line. He says, "Because you gave Jesus for me, I give my whole day to you today." My note that I put on this line is, remember in week 2 when we were talking about break me? What was the line? It was, do this in remembrance of me. And we had a big discussion about, well, what's your this? What is the this that you're going to do? And do this in remembrance of me. What is the this you're going to do? And we've had the acronym this. You remember what this stands for? Through him I succeed. That's what this stands for. And I think that's great. It's a great thing. And hey, Linda Burkholder, also me too. Hi, Randy. I'm not sure what you're me tooing there, Randy. Sorry. But so do this in remembrance of me. And that's kind of where he starts it. He says, okay, I remember, talked about that on Easter, how important remembering is. And I remember that, therefore, my request is that you allow me to give back to you. Now, I'm not going to give in kind. It's not going to be in proportion because of how much the good Lord has given to us. There's no way we're going to make up that curve. But I'm going to give what I can. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to do this in remembrance of him. And so whatever your this is, whether it be reach out to somebody, Remember when we used to actually get together? We could like hug each other and give handshakes and stuff. You guys remember that? Anybody here remember doing that? Seems like so long ago now. That was just such a nice connection thing. And church is awesome. Uh, I've never in my life missed 4 Sundays ever. In fact, I only ever missed twice, 2 Sundays in a row, once in my life. So this has been terrible, and I hate this. I understand why we have it, and I'm not down on anybody because we're here, but I'm just I'm getting tired. I miss never having a payoff. You write sermons and I write articles and do all these things and how exciting it used to be, and now I do these things and it just doesn't have the same excitement to it now because there's no energy around it anymore, and I just gosh, it's exhausting. And I know you teachers out there, I feel so bad for you, going from classroom setting to this online stupidity. You guys are awesome, and I hope that you teachers, the teachers I have in here, my heart goes out to you because I'm doing this a little bit. You guys are doing it a lot, and I know it's wearing on you. And I just appreciate what you're doing for our kids online, because it's just not the same. It's not what any of us signed on for, but I appreciate you guys doing that. And yeah, thanks, Mark. Through him, I succeed. You remember, and that's what this stands for. And we're going to succeed. We're going to come out the other side. And yeah, April, I know what you guys are doing is terrible. And hopefully, we'll go back to the old-fashioned way sometime soon, because that's the way we all understand. But just my friends, keep doing this. Keep doing your this, because through him I succeed. And I want you to know. Hey, Janet Scott, welcome. I just want you guys to know what a difference you're making, because even though this is not the same, this is not the same. It's yeah, this is better than the alternative, Linda. That's the point I'm making. This may not be as good as what we have had before, but this is. Whoa, hold on here, my computer's doing something weird. This is certainly better than nothing. And so for all of you who are working hard to try to oh, thank you, D. I wished I could too. Jess was nice enough to hang a bunch of your pictures down in the sanctuary for me, and I would look at those pictures, and it was nice, but it wasn't the same as your actual faces. So I did take them down for Sunday because I was afraid everybody would be like, "What is all that paper in the pews?" But I appreciate all of you who submitted pictures for that. That was a nice surprise to go down there and see. Apparently as close as we could get. So. Barb, yes, minus the commentary. So, yeah, I feel a whole lot less intimidated doing sermons with camera because I know the choir is not going to heckle me. So that's probably a good thing. But yes, I do know I'm loved, and I appreciate that, Jess. Oh, actually, Kim, like 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do this. In fact, all the work that we had done on the website, and April worked with me on a lot of that stuff, and I worked with some Diane in the office just to get some things together, and working with Patty Cisco over at Market Essentials to get the website together. Had we not done that, and had I not had the training to do this kind of stuff through that, I wouldn't have known what to do. So the fact that our website was set up, and I had learned so much about digital video and shooting, I would not have known this was even an option had not been for that. So so many things had to fit together between the book and my very remedial understanding of all this stuff. So much stuff had to happen that you got to look at it and say, wow, that's just God working. And we may all be disappointed with how things are right now. And, summer doesn't look like it's going to be terribly fun this year, but I can certainly see God's hand in all this. And had I, because I started working on the website, I hadn't been here all that long at that point. Had I not started early, because I had a lot to learn, Had I not started early, I would never have made up the curve to be able to do this now. So again, it's all a part of God using the willing. And since I was willing to put my goofy face up on so much of a website, which still cracks me up, and learn how to do this, that's why we were able to do this, because I had learned to do this through training for that, having no idea how I was going to put this to use, at least how much. And we tried a few things, and some things work better than others. But so many of you were willing to do this in remembrance of him. And right now there's 37 people logged in here right now. Friends, this is like This is like our third week. We've maintained almost 35 people a night here. That's awesome. And because you guys have decided we're going to do this in remembrance of him. And I hope you're still getting something out of it. And I appreciate you all being here to participate. So, all right, man, I am in like super tangent mode tonight. All right, so in this prayer that he says, he goes through. Let me see here. How many we got here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got eight sections, and each one of the sections starts off with a specific part of the body. And so on each one of these, I'm going to ask you a single question, and I'm going to ask, if you gave this part of your body, and I'm just going to tell you, the first one is your mind. If you gave your mind to God, what would happen? Jump in the comments and tell me. If God had control of your mind, what would happen? And while you're doing that, tell me what would happen if you gave God control of your mind. While you're doing that, I want to talk about the verbs that he uses. The first verb he uses is give. I don't have much to say about that because the verbs are going to change, I noticed, through this prayer. But the mind, I'm going to hand it over. If I give you my Kindle, that means I'm handing it to you. I'm saying whatever it does, whatever's on this screen, whatever I'm going to see, you have control of because I gave it to you. That's what it means to give something. Okay, I don't know, forfeiting control is quite the right thing. But if anybody gives you a birthday present and you open it and they're like, oh, that's so cool, but the left half of it is mine, you're like, why did you give it to me? Normally when we give something, the other person takes possession of it. So when we come into our mind, and again, I'm going to talk about the verbs as you guys are responding. Talking about our mind, we're giving that over. Okay, so if we gave our mind over to God, what might happen? Marion says better focus. I think that would probably be good. God has a tendency of we'll say clearing clutter and getting things out of the way. Trina says nothing is impossible. That's true. That what's that phrase everybody uses? Stinking thinking. How much stuff does our brain talk us out of? Things that we ought to do, and we let our mind talk us out of it. And it's something that many of us have made an art form, is second guessing ourselves. And there's a lot of things that our mind prevents us from doing, and including sometimes sleep, and that can be a problem. Okay, Cheryl says be in a service 24/7, be able to accomplish more. That's back to the focus thing, which I certainly agree with. Less distractions. Again, Parker, back to the focus. It will help us keep the main thing the main thing. And when life is going crazy and there's a lot going on and everything's disrupted, keeping the main thing is pretty important. Mark Rudisell says test taking would be easy. God is all knowing. That would be awesome, right? It's just like, dear Lord, please tell me about the War of 1812. And then you kind of ace the test. That would be awesome. Kind of like they do in the Matrix, where they call up the phone and they're like, hey, I need to fly a helicopter. And then they download that would be great if God would do that. I'd have done a lot better in school if that was the case. April John says, for those who are hard on ourselves, those thoughts would be more positive. Yes. God, if he's going to have control of your mind, and this is part of the break me prayer, part of that is we give God veto power. So if we have a thought that I'm not good enough for whatever reason, God says, reject, veto, vote it out of the brain. And, and that's an important thing, because self-esteem and self-respect and just a general acceptance that you're a worthy person can be really hard for some people. And so If God took control of our mind, some of those negative thoughts wouldn't be allowed to stay, because God would say, I don't agree with that. So wherever that lie is coming from, it gets deleted. So that's very cool. Teresa says she would be more understanding in love. Teresa, I honestly know you. I don't know how you could get any better in that one, but yeah, I suppose so. Janet says clarity. Yes, again, clearing out the clutter. Jack Miller, of course, says, thy will be done. Leave it to Jack to quote some scripture for us in the Lord's Prayer. And that's kind of how that works. Amy agrees with clarity. Good. Janine, one thing at a time. We talked about that, I think, a little bit last night, the whole multitasking fallacy. And you want to be careful about that, because you let that brain run too fast, and it'll get out too far out in front of the rest of you. Linda, know what to say or do. Again, that's back to clarity. To be able to express yourself in word and deed would be very good. And D seems to agree with April, says perfectionism would not be so prevalent. I would take that a step further and say perfectionism would no longer exist, because we can't get there. So the idea of perfectionism and the self negative self-image and the negative self-feelings that comes from that, God says, nope. I mean, he's been pretty clear. He already knows we're not perfect. It's not like he looks at our shortcomings and is like, oh my gosh, I had no idea how terrible you were. That God never says that. And so some of that perfectionism and the self negativity that goes with it, gone. So Bill, who has a correction, would be more service and love oriented. And because God would align our mind, he's going to take possession of it. He was going to align our mind with his will for us. And love and service seems like a pretty good way to do that. All right, you guys are rocking this out. All right, next, eyes. And the verb. So what would happen if you gave God your eyes? Okay, what would happen if you gave God your eyes? The verb he uses here, again, is give, same as your mind. And again, I'm pointing this out because some of the verbs he uses for some of these other body parts is going to be different. So in this one, he says, give your eyes. So if you were willing to give your eyes to God, what would that do? What would that change? What would it mean to you? Or what would you expect to happen if you gave God your eyes? Gave God your eyes. Again, that means give him possession of them. You know, again, it's not like you can give God your eyes and say, oh, I really wanted to keep the left one, though. It doesn't work that way. If you're giving him over, you're letting him control. So what would happen if we presented God with our eyes and prayed, God, take my eyes? Toby says we could see, and Miriam agrees, we could see the good and beauty in all situations, because there's a lot of situations out there where there's a lot of beauty happening and we don't see it. A lot of times because all this beauty's happen all out in here, and we're focused on this one little thing here that we don't like, and we can't see anything but this. Sometimes, now my computer's doing something real weird. Tim, don't be swinging the mouse around. The idea is in seeing this thing that we don't like, a lot of the negative self-image and the negative self-talk that we do comes from the fact that we refuse to see what's beautiful about us. And some of you who wrote that, and I'm not trying to turn this into a warm, fuzzy, touchy-feely thing, but I do think that when people struggle with perfectionism and struggle with a negative voice in their mind, it's because they have this amazing potential to see what's wrong in everything, especially in themselves. And so my thinking is, and I think I agree with you, if we gave God our eyes, we would be able to see more of the beautiful things. I see a couple more people have put that in there. Sherry was going to say that too. Let's see here. How far up do I have to go here? Be careful, little eyes, what you see. Remember that song? Trina, I can't say that I do. Or else I would sing it for you, because I've done singing. Did Billy Joel happen to have a version of that? So yeah. Joyce, help us to see good easily. That's exactly right. Because it's not easy to see good, especially to those of you who are struggling with some of this negative self-talk. It's not easy to see what's good. That's a tough thing to see. God sees it, and He wants to show it to us. But here's the thing: if we constantly go like this, we're not going to see the whole picture. If the good is on that side, and we constantly make sure that we're not seeing it, and we're covering it up, it's not going to be there. If we're going like this the whole time, or we're trying to look at the world like that, it doesn't work that way. You have to allow God to show you what's good, and you have to be willing to see it. And that's what one of the things giving God your eyes would definitely do. Okay. Let's see here. See the world in a whole new light. I see everyone through His love. Teresa, certainly. Keeps emailing me. Bill Harsh says, see the world in a whole new light. Yep, a whole new way, a whole new perspective. I remember years ago, speaking of songs I do know, Bill Gaither sang a song called A New Point of View, and it was about a hot air balloon ride and seeing things the way God sees them. And that's what God does, is He makes us see, maybe some things we don't want to see, but He certainly shows us some things we need to see, and maybe He shows us some things that we haven't seen, and some things that are not as bad as we originally thought. Eyes to see God in the world. Yep, I would agree with that. And that's what those eyes are supposed to do. Janine from the song Day by Day, see more clearly. Now that one I know that song. In fact, here comes Pastor Tim, going to reveal a piece of his past. When I was in show choir in high school, we sang that song. I remember that. And please don't lose respect for me for that. No pictures or video existed that. I made sure they were all destroyed. All right. Mark Rudisil, direct our focus. Yes. I mean, part of owning our eyes will be pointing our eyes. So what are we looking at? And getting around to see things. So yes, direct our focus. Jess says, Trina, I do. I'm assuming that's about the song. Cheryl, did you not go to a daycare or a Bible school, Tim? That song is a standard. I went to lots of them, but I don't remember that one. Joe says, I pray for awareness of His presence around me. And again, letting God have your eyes, He may be able to point you in that direction. And that's a very important thing to have. Trent, I'm assuming those are lyrics to the song. That's not ringing a bell. Sorry. But I hope a lot of you know the song. I'm sorry, I don't know it. So I was deprived. So, all right, let's go to the next one. This is actually kind of interesting. The next one is ears. So what would happen if you gave God your ears? Now, the verb He uses here changes. So mind, He says give. Eyes, He says give. But ears, He says guard. To me, that's a different verb. If I give you something, if I give you my Kindle, that's a whole different experience than me saying, hey, will you take care of this for me? Will you guard this for me? To me, those are two different things. And if in your answer, if you would like to comment on that, why do you think the verb changes there? If we're going to give God our mind, give God our eyes, why are we going to ask Him just to guard our ears? We're going to keep those? I thought about that a little bit today. I don't know. I'm not sure why we're giving our eyes but guarding our ears. I'm not sure why He makes that distinction, but I found it interesting that He did. And so I thought that was interesting. So what happens? Give God your ears. Man, Daryl, you just hammered that one. That's true. Sherry says, block out the negative lies Satan whispers to me. My friends, it's precisely what happens. And that's probably why the verb changes, because, man, those ears, your eyes do too, but man, your ears just absorb a metric ton of lies. And, if we had a lie detector that we could hook to our brain, or maybe, put over our ear to screen out lies, that would be great, because there's a lot of lies goes in those ears, and they cause a lot of problems. Toby, what we allow to enter our mind, because it will affect our mind and our eyes. Yeah, I mean, what you hear and what you allow yourself to hear, and then what you interpret that you hear, all those are dangerous, and those voices can take on a lot of different forms. Let's see. Mark says your ears allow new thoughts into your brain. Others have ideas that lead you astray. Yeah, again, back to the lies. And those lies can come in a lot of different forms, and they can be amazingly enticing and amazingly yes, and they can do a lot of damage. Kim says, "Don't let hurtful things in." I would even take that a step further and say, not only not let hurtful things in, but don't let things in that our mind can make become hurtful. Because I think, again, not every time, and I'm not accusing everyone of doing this, but a lot of the negative self-talk that goes on in our brain, and a lot of the negativity that we deal with, comes from the fact that we think we hear something bad. We think somebody meant something bad. They said something, and maybe they were just kidding, or maybe they were, their mind was in a whole different place, and we'll hear it and be like, "What's your problem with me?" And they're like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And yeah, and so sometimes guarding our into negative talk that would never was intended. And the environment sends something to us. The eyes control what they say. Ooh, Cheryl, that's real good, and exactly what I would expect a doctor to say. That's real good. That may have nailed it, because the ears are passive. They take in everything, and our brain sorts it out, where our eyes can look different directions. So yeah, very nicely done. And Teresa's kind of on the same wavelength here. Ears are receptive only; they would only allow good things in. Maybe not necessarily allow good things in. I would not say good. I would say true. We all need to be able to hear criticism, but we need to be able to hear it in the way it was given, and know the reason why it was given. And I think God taking control of our ears would protect us from making things worse than what they really are. Tell kids and students, garbage in, garbage out. Amen. And that's what happens, and the ears are real good at that. Okay, here comes the next one. Y'all knew this one was coming. Let's talk about the mouth. What would happen if you gave God your mouth? Now, the verb he uses here is also guard. Guard my mouth. And by guard our mouth, that sometimes means go like this. Because, the book of James tells us that the tongue has deadly poison in it. It can ruin your whole life because you can't not run your mouth. And so, what would happen if we gave God control of our mouth, or asked him to guard our mouth? Allowed or ask God to guard our mouth. All right, we got two people who said almost exactly the same thing, Cheryl and Kim. Cheryl says, "I would not say all the things I wished I hadn't said." And Kim says, "I think before I speak." I'm pretty sure that's the same sentiment right there. Man, we are all guilty of what I'm about to say. We sometimes had a mouth that runs faster than the brain. And man, once that leaves your mouth, it is out there forever. It's much like, stuff recorded on the internet or posted on social media. It is always there. And back to the loose cannons. And it's amazing. We get a lot of quotation marks in these answers. Teresa says there'd be no loose cannons. Yep, loose lips, sink ships, and all those things can really cause problems. Same more positive stuff, Linda, and that would be true. Sherry's mom always told her, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. It's good advice we all should learn from. You like the visual of a toothpaste tube. Once it's out, you never get it back. Amen, Trina. And the mouth is much like a toothpaste tube. Bill says, "I might be awfully quiet." Bill, that's a nice moment of self-realization there, buddy. I really appreciate that transparency. So very good. And who knows, I'd probably be a lot more quiet too if I allowed that. Angie says, "So we don't hurt others, we think before we speak." Very important. Actions speak louder than words. That's a different take on it, but that's true. And sometimes what you do speaks so loud, I can't hear what you say. Scott says that Janet would be in a lot less trouble. Sounds like something I would expect a husband to say. Linda's up with Trina. Yep, that's good. Jack says Cheryl wouldn't be saying, and you'll be the death of me yet. I don't know if Jack believes that, Cheryl, but I should tell you guys to be nice to each other. Let's see. Teresa says we build up, not tear down, and boy, the mouth is good at that. And very good. All right. Next, you can probably guess the next place we're going, the heart. What happens if we gave God control of our heart? And again, the verb he uses here is guard. And I think this one is pretty self-explanatory. What would happen if we allowed God to guard our heart? I go back to what somebody said earlier about, negative self-talk would have to, being down on ourselves would have to stop. I think that speaks here about, because look, a lot of us struggle with that. We have the voice, we have a voice of a very negative parent in our mind, and we have the voice of a bad experience or somebody who hurt us, or a lot of things that didn't go well, or a past failure, or something that was terribly hurtful. And man, those burdens can be a lot to carry. And look, we all know that. I know that. I've got things that I deal with, self-esteem issues and confidence issues, and all these kinds. We all have that, and that comes from a lot of different places, and it can be quite a burden. But if we allow God to guard our heart, some of the lies that get in around those wounds and around that scar tissue may not be quite as damaging. And Barb, I'm assuming that's the question about the mouth. And no, I do not want you to answer that one. So Cheryl says we would not become so hardened. That's true, because man, you get hurt a couple times. The last thing you want to do is let somebody get close to you and or tell them things that you don't want to tell anybody, and share things, deep secrets. You carry a lot of, you're in a lot of experiences where you're dealing with hurt people. I mean, the saying that we always say, and they taught me in seminary, is hurt people hurt people. And, and in the church, we see a lot of hurt people. And down through the years, I've had some really bitter experiences through that. And, and that can make you real cautious in both your personal and your professional life about how much you're willing to tell people and how much access you allow them to have to you and that kind of stuff. And you keep the whole world at arm's length, and that's a painful way to live. And if we allow God to guard our heart, some of those defenses might actually come down. And some of those walls that we have built up that trap those negative voices in and internalizes them toward ourselves, some of that stuff might get out. And it's all about being hardened, as Kim says here. And Linda says we'll be more understanding. And maybe that understanding would extend not only to other people, but also to ourselves. And there's a lot to be said for that. Teresa says we would not be hurt by things taken in, never retaliate. We would heal others with his love. Yeah, and that's, and that will, remove the scar tissue. And we would just care and not walk past somebody in need, because we've all gotten taken by somebody's spiel, needing help and whatever, and we've got sucked into that, and your response to that when you realize you've been taken is, I ain't doing that again. And that's how hearts get hardened. So, all right, I've got just a couple left. Next, let's do hands. What would happen if we gave God control of our hands? And the way he expresses this one is, make my hands your hands. What would happen if we allowed God control? I mean, control is the word here. What if we allowed God control of our hands? So we're not asking him to guard them like we are our heart, and we're not giving them away like we are our mind. These we're saying, we want you to be the boss of them. So what happens if we allowed God to have control of our hands? What might happen? How might things change if we allow God to have control of our hands? No, Daryl, I don't think that's going to change. Sherry thinks maybe we wouldn't have to wash them as much. Buzz, I'm pretty sure the washing thing is not going away. And somebody really insightful seems to tell you guys to wash your hands a lot. See if I can remember who that was. More hugs and high five to those who ask. Those he asked us to love. I like that, Joe, and it's exactly what would happen. Definitely, we can use these hands to help others, and a lot of things these hands can do. Everything from comfort to lift up to extend welcome. Before that would kill us, apparently. And there's a lot of things hands can do. So if we allow God to be boss of the hands, they would be used for constructive purposes and not destructive purposes. And that could be a major thing. Anybody else on hands? Next is feet. Your feet. Yeah, Toby, we'd use our hands to build instead of tear down. Exactly. What would happen if we allow God to direct our feet? The open hand of healing and giving service, Teresa. I certainly agree with that. There'd be a lot more of that if we allow God to be the boss of these things. So what about our feet? He says, direct our feet. Again, control our feet. How might that change things if God had control of your feet? Control of the feet. I think in a nutshell, that would be about control where we go, control how we go, how we get there, how we go about experiencing the place where we are. I mean, if you go into a park and ride around it on a bicycle, it's a whole different experience than if you walk around it. Sure. Trina says, go where he leads us. That's true if he's the boss of the feet. That's how it would happen. Cheryl says she'd be less lazy. Yeah, Cheryl, you strike me as a terribly lazy person. Janine says we would run toward help instead of running away from it. That's the definition of a hero. Heroes run toward things everyone else run away from. So, yep, that's definitely what happened. Teresa says go, win, and I would assume where called. Going places to help others, says Kim. Toby says faster at running. I don't know, Toby. You seem to do pretty well at that. But I think we all get the idea that that's directing our place and where we need to go. Dance competition for Jesus. Tim versus the Dangerous Prayers class. I'm going to forfeit that one because I wouldn't have a chance. I wouldn't have any way to deal with that one. Joyce says, I've always loved the expression being the hands and feet of God. And that's a good way to look at it. All right. I think we've covered this effectively enough. All right. It's got a couple. I got just a couple of minutes left. And Angie says he would guide us to go to the right places so we could serve. Yep. Serve where he wants us to serve. And that's how we can be directed. Okay. All right. Anything more about this conversation? I'll give you a chance to have any last thing, and then we'll take the last 5 minutes and talk through what's going to happen this week, because we're going to finish Dangerous Prayers tomorrow. Wasn't there 8 parts? The last one is the whole body. Yes, there were 8 parts. The last one was the whole body, and I think we covered that one well enough, since we've hit all the individual parts. So the last part was the whole body. So, all right. Anything more about giving, guarding, or controlling parts of our body? Well, let's talk about what we're going to do after tomorrow. We have one last chapter left. Tomorrow is 3.8, which is the last chapter in phase 3 of the prayer cycle. And so we're going to be talking about what's the question. And we'll be going through this and having a conversation much like we have been having. Starting on Thursday, then, we'll go right the very next night. We are going to move on. We are no longer having a book study. We are now moving on to a Bible study. We're going to be studying the story of Joseph. And any of you, and what we're going to do is I have it all ready to go and printed out here. I have done extensive study on the book of Joseph. I had a sermon series over Joseph while I was still at Forest Park, and I have read his story many times. The story of Joseph is really the main event we have in our Bibles, really the only main event prior to the Exodus, when Moses leads the Israelites out of Egypt. The most major story. I mean, there's a lot of stories in there. If you want to read some really weird stuff, go read the middle of the book of Genesis. Man, there's some bizarre stuff going on in there. But Joseph's story picks up in Genesis 37 and runs through Genesis 50, which, as you know, is the last chapter of Genesis. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to, every night, 8 o'clock, we're just going to start wherever we left off, and we're going to read and discuss. And we're going to read and discuss until we're done. I have no idea how long it's going to take us to get through. I have no preconceived notions. It's perfectly fine for those of you who didn't have the Dangerous Prayers book. We worked around that, but I'm pretty sure y'all got a Bible. So please read. I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation. If you want to be on the translation that I'm in, you don't have to be. In fact, some different translations might give us some different nuances to some of the things that are in here. But Joseph's story is an amazing, amazing story, a great story. And one of the things, the purpose of the story is that God's plan was to stop a famine. He's going to cancel a famine. That's the story of Joseph. And as I don't know if any of you have ever been through a famine or ever been close to one, but famines are a big deal. And the good Lord wanted that famine stopped. So he chose one man to send out versus a famine. You want to talk about send a maniac to stop a maniac? It's exactly what happened. Joseph is a maniac. And he ends up saving the entire nation of Egypt and his own people, the Israelites, in the process. So get on there. Again, we're going to finish up Dangerous Prayers. We'll still be on Dangerous Prayers tomorrow night. But we will start Joseph on Thursday. So here's the other thing I would like to ask you guys. First of all, if you got any comments on Joseph or want to ask anything, jump in and do that now. I want to ask you guys, I've been thinking about what to do with this. So many of you seem to be enjoying this so much. And my plan is to continue this until the quarantine is over. To continue this nightly until the quarantine is over. I'm wondering if any of you would be interested after the quarantine is over, understanding life is going to change. Yes, Genesis 37, Gene. We're going to just start in Genesis 37. I have no idea how much we'll get finished every night, but if you just want to go and review Genesis 37 and following, that's where we're going to be. I would like to know that, ask all of you to jump in the comments and tell me, once the quarantine is over, is something like this something you would be interested in? Because here's my thought. I know the every night thing won't work anymore because everybody's going to be back to their normal life, hopefully at that point. But what if we did this as a once a week thing? Would that be something you're interested in? Would you come back for a once a week event? And what I'm thinking of is doing Wednesday night, starting about 8:15 or so, because I'll be with youth group and children's ministry prior to that. And usually that wraps up about 8 o'clock. Any of you who are picking up kids would have time to get kids and run home. And I'm wondering if any of you would be interested if I had a once a week thing. And what we would do then is it would be have two parts. It would be reflect on the worship, reflect on the sermon from the previous week, and look forward to the sermon and the service the next week. So it will be a time of reflection on the previous week, and then it would be looking ahead to the next week. And yeah, Trent, that's what I was thinking. It'd also be after choir, so 8:15 would give everybody a chance to get home and get logged on or whatever. And that's kind of what I'm thinking around 8:15. So I was just wondering, and again, it looks like we have plenty of time to reflect on this, but okay, so this seems to be something you guys are interested in. I would like to use this as an upper level discipleship experience where we would be able to talk about some deeper issues and do more than just kind of the confirmation class stuff. I mean, not that that's not important, but you guys are all past that now, and really go second level on sermon topics, and go second level on your input on, say, hey, we need to have a sermon on this, or here's a story in the Bible we'd like to look at, or maybe we need a sermon series around this particular character or this particular book, or whatever, and use this as a thing as an opportunity to do that. And the reason I'm offering that to you is because I want to do some discipleship. That's something that we are desperately needing here at Wayne Street. And this would give me an opportunity to reach. I mean, I got 37 of you in here right now, and that is awesome. I just I can't get over that. And it would just give us a chance to take worship services and sermons and things to the next level. So seems like enough of you would be interested in that to come out and be a part of that. So I'm thinking 8:15, on a Wednesday night. I mean, for the most part, should be enough time for kids' sports or whatever. I mean, I would think they'd be wrapped up usually by then to give people a chance to get back. And it's only once a week. So just something to think about. Yes, I would provide as much, prior information as I possibly could. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Cheryl. So, okay, that's something that we'll definitely look into. Again, there's no sign that this quarantine is going to end anytime soon, so we'll have to hold off on that. But tomorrow night is Wednesday. Would you like to do? I have the sermon written for this week for Sunday. I haven't recorded it yet, but I've written it. Would you like to have a little sermon preview tomorrow night? Is that something that would interest you? Or would you rather just hear it all on Sunday? We're starting a new sermon series on Ruth. And I'll even tell you, the new sermon series is called The Six C's of God's Plan. And the sermon for Sunday is going to be about, the importance of being a part of what's going on and being committed. Commitment is what we're looking at. And we're looking at the seven ways Satan derails our commitment. So that's your Tuesday small preview. We're looking at the 7 ways that the devil tries to derail our commitment, and we'll have a little talk about that tomorrow night because I'm still not sure how that's going to work. So maybe we could use tomorrow night as a trial just to kind of see. I'm not going to give away anything, but we're looking tomorrow at the scripture lesson for tomorrow. Is any of you want to read it? Yes, the preview of coming attractions for this coming Sunday. The sermon is going to be over Ruth. Ruth 1, 7 to 18. So that's the sermon text for Sunday. And if you guys would like, we could just have a little conversation. If you want to go read it and bring your comments, I would absolutely do that. So, well, we'll see how long Dangerous Prayers takes tomorrow. If we run over or don't have time, whatever, we'll go on to something else. But yeah. So, all right. I know you're not going to have these finished tomorrow. I'm not going to have mine finished tomorrow. We're going to continue working on these. These will extend into Joseph. So we're not going to be done with these tomorrow. So hang on to them and keep working on them. And really, Eric Gurman, you know what? I knew that, and I didn't realize that till just now. Eric has been an online teacher for 6 years. So if any of you want some tips from a pro, Eric Gurman is a pro. And if you don't know how to get a hold of Eric, get a hold of me and I will get you in touch with him. But hey, good for you, Eric. Thanks for offering that. So, all right, guys. I appreciate you coming out. We'll see what happens tomorrow night as far as finishing up Dangerous Prayers and talk about the worksheet, and maybe we'll do a small sermon preview, and then we're going to be moving on to Joseph on Thursday. So I love you all very much. Thank you for giving this time to be here, to be a part of this conversation. And I would love to get our morning group on, Janet. I don't know what the morning group is. And Cheryl, yeah, read your Bible. Read Ruth, and then we're going to be reading Genesis. Genesis 37 is where we're starting for Joseph on Thursday. So, Donata, is that Spanish for you're welcome? I think, Daryl. Oh, the early church. Janet, any any way you have to get them any way you have to get them involved? I'd love that. So, hey, Mark, thanks for coming out tonight, buddy. Hope to see you tomorrow night. So, oh, it's C. Thank you, Gene. Trini, you're welcome. Teresa, thank you. And thanks for the cheesecake I had tonight with my supper. It was really good. Bill Har says good night. Kim Kill says good night. And GWYH. What is that? Well, you guys are awesome. Continue being awesome. If I can do anything for you, please drop me a text, and I will decide if I can do that for you or not. I love you all very much. And now it is time to go wash your hands.